So basically, we have started our discussion to understand about how to make a Java class as a singleton class. Okay, sure. Yeah. So folks, okay, I will just continue. So what I'm trying to say now, we are going to understand. Okay, we are going to understand about how to make our Java class like a singleton class. See, the one way which I told, like how we can make the Java class a singleton. Correct. The one way in which we can make our Java class a singleton class, that is, yeah. Yeah. So as I said like this, what I told is, suppose you want to make a class a singleton class, right? Suppose I would like to make the class name itself a singleton, and now I want to make my Java class a singleton class, which means what actually default scope in Spring is singleton for a bean class, but the singleton scope is per container. The default scope is singleton, I agree. But what happens now? Per container, that bean is singleton. And for example, if I create a bean and if I store or register it in the Spring container, then the container can manage multiple objects of my bean class. In the previous class, that's what we discussed, right? So our requirement is what? In the container, I want to create a single object of my class and I would like to store it in the Spring container. And the same object should be used always, whether one single container started or when multiple containers are started for Spring. But a single object of the class should be used in the entire application. I told in the previous session saying that suppose I have created a bean with a scope singleton. So container creates a single object for the bean. We are not writing any code for that. Just we are only writing the scope annotation, and we are telling the container that the scope of this bean is singleton. That's it. We don't have writing any code for that. Then container will create only one object and will use the same object in the container always. That is singleton. But what happens if I create a bean method in the configuration class, and if I store the object of the class again in a container, then container will accept it, which means for the same class in the container is now managing two objects, even though scope is singleton. So which means what? Container creates a single object, but it allows us to create multiple objects and store in the container. If we explicitly store the object in the container will accept it with a different ID, right? So our requirement is what now? Suppose in any application, my requirement is what? There should be a single object and the container should only store a single object of the class and it should not store multiple objects. So if that is the case, you have to make your class as a singleton class, right? So what is the meaning of, okay, what is the meaning of making the singleton? in the entire application of my, in the entire my application, there should be a single instance for my class. And that instance I would like to store in the container, for example. Only one object should be created for my class, and I do not want to allow creating more than one object for my class. In any way means either by the container or by creating the object explicitly from other classes. So in any way, but I don't want to allow creating more than one object for my class. Only a single object should be created for my class, and that object only should be used always either by the container or if any other class is trying to create the object of my class. But still, a single object only I would like to share with all the other classes. So when you want to create a single object of your class and you want to share the same object always with everyone in the entire application, then you should make your classes singleton. So in such case, bean scope singleton doesn't work for your requirement. Because if a bean scope is singleton, then Spring Container creates a single object of the class within the container and it will use it always. But it will also allow us to create another object. Explicitly, we can able to create another object and we can store it in the container. Now the container will maintain two different objects with two different IDs for the same class. But my requirement is what? For the entire application, I want to make only one object. I don't want to allow to create more than one object for my class, and only that one object I want to share with all the other objects, all the other classes in the application. For the entire application, for my class, I want to create a single object and I want to share a single object of my class with all the other classes. And if that is the case, then I should explicitly make my classes singleton. In this case, singleton scope is not suitable to my requirement. Why singleton scope is not suitable to my requirement is, if I make scope as a singleton for a bean class, then Spring Container creates a single object. Okay, but it is also possible that another object could be created for the same bean and can be stored in the container with a different ID. Okay, with a different ID. So, but my requirement is what? Only one object I want to create for the entire application for this class, and I want to share this object with others. A single object only I want to share with everyone in the entire application. Then explicitly you need to make your class as what? Singleton class. So how do you make a class as a singleton class? If you want to make if you want to make any class as a singleton class, in the previous session I told, first of all, you should not allow the other classes to create the object. Okay, right? Other classes to create the object. For example, let's say I'm creating the use case like where singleton class is going to be recommended. For example, you take one project. For a project, we have different configuration settings. And all the configuration settings we are writing in a configuration properties file. Now I want to load all the configuration properties of the project into one object, and that object I want to share for the entire application. The configuration settings of the project should be stored in single object and share the same configuration settings in the entire application. If any other classes wants to know the configuration settings or wants to use the configurations, they have to get the data from this object. So which means how many objects I want to create for my class to store the configuration settings, to load the configuration settings. One object I want to create. That one object I want to share it with all the entire application classes. At any class, if some other class is there in my project, it wants to utilize some of the configuration properties. So then how that class can able to get the configuration data if required, it can get through my object. If another class also wants to get some configuration data, then how that class also can get the data through my class object. So, but I don't want to create two different objects. I want to create how many objects to my class? One object. That one object only I would like to share it with the other class 1 and also to the other class 2, which means I should make my class as what type of class in such case? Singleton class. Singleton class, because there is no need of creating multiple objects for a class for the same data. This is going to lead wastage of memory storage. For example, for one project, how many configuration settings are available for the entire one project? One configuration settings are available. If you are creating multiple objects for a class to load the configuration data, what is the use of storing the same configuration data in multiple objects? There is no use. Let's take an employee. Are you going to create for one employee multiple objects? Are you going to create for one employee multiple objects? No. No. Okay. We are going to store one employee information in one object. We are going to store one employee information in one object. Are you going to create another object also for storing the same employee data? No. If you are creating multiple objects to store the same employee details, nothing but what you are getting? Memory wastage. You are not properly utilizing the memory. Memory get wasted because of you are storing. What are you storing? You are storing. Okay. You are creating duplicate objects. Nothing but you are storing the same data in multiple objects. So this is where a singleton class requirement will come into the picture. So in any project, when are you going to create a singleton class explicitly? If, for example, you want to create a single object and you want to share the same object across the application with everywhere. So then you have to make your class as what? Singleton class. Singleton class. Because for the same data, if multiple objects are created in application, then what happens? For the same data, the constant data, for the same data, what happens if multiple objects are created for the same data? Memory gets wasted. So I want to create how many objects? One object, and I would like to share the same object with all the other classes in the application. So in such case, I should make my class as what type of class? Singleton class. So how do I make my class a singleton class? That is the requirement. If at all you want to make any classes singleton class, first of all, I told you that don't allow other classes to create your class object. That's the first thing, right? If other classes are allowed to create an object of your class, then other classes can create multiple objects for your class. Then how do you make your class a singleton? It's not possible. That's why, what is the first requirement? What is the first requirement? Don't allow the other classes to create the object of your class. How can you restrict other classes that from creating object of your class? For that, we are going to write the constructor as private. If you write the private constructor, then other classes cannot create the object, because private constructor is not accessible from outside the class. So we are going to make the constructor of our class as what? Private. Okay. Then I told, because learning singleton design, this is called singleton design pattern. What singleton design pattern says? Create a single object for your class and share the same object with all the other classes in the entire application. So this pattern is called a singleton design pattern. Okay. Okay. Let's come to the point. See, I'm making constructor as what now? Private. I told in the last session. So by making the constructor as private, then what happens now? Other classes cannot able to create the object for our class, because private constructor is not visible at outside the class. So that's why nobody can create object for my class, because constructor is private. Okay. Next thing, create one private static final. Final may be or may not be, doesn't matter that you must create the variable as a final variable. Okay. you must, there is no, I mean, what I can say that if you make it as a final variable or if you don't make it as final variable, that is good. Okay, that is good. But mostly we are not going to make this variable as final variable. I will tell you why we are not going to make it as final variable. Because I'll tell you the reason like why we don't make it as final variable. Okay, right. First I'll make it as final variable, then I'll tell you why we don't make it as final variable. Next, I just want to say that the variable type is, reference variable type is singleton, and let's say for example my variable name is singleton. Okay, right, let's go ahead, let's see. What is it? Okay, see, look at my point. So there is a class called singleton. Now I'll tell you about why we are not making it as a why we are not making it as what? Singleton. So private static final singleton singleton. If I make it as final variable, you know, for a final variable, you must initialize, you must assign the value to the final variable at the time of variable creation, or you have to do it within the constructor. But if you make it as a final variable, then you cannot initialize the value in other methods. If it is a static final variable, you can't even initialize the static final variable in the constructor. You have to initialize it in the static block. At the time of variable declaration, you can do that. Otherwise, you have to use a static block to initialize the static final variable. You know, final variables are instance final variables, static final variables, local final variables. There are three categories of final variables are available: local final variable, static final variable, instance final variable. If a final variable is a static final variable, there are only two options available. What are the two options? First is at the time of creating the variable only you can initialize it. Otherwise, you have to define a static block to initialize it. You cannot initialize even in the constructor, or you cannot initialize even in any other method also. Am I right or not? That's why we don't make it as what? Final. Now I'm deleting final. So hope you guys understood why we are not making it as final. Okay, good, good. Static variable we can initialize even in the constructor also. Allowed. Static final variable is not allowed in the constructor. Only static variable without final we can able to initialize in the constructor. It will allow. But the problem is what? That will be reinitialized again and again for each object. Okay, it is getting reinitialized, but it is possible to initialize the static variable in the constructor. That is allowed. Static final variable not allowed. That will give error, compile time error. Okay, cool. Now this is my, you guys can see private static singleton singleton. I told in the previous session, if you directly initialize is equal to new singleton, object is created. Object is created for singleton class. Private static singleton, singleton is equal to new singleton. So which is nothing but we are creating an object for singleton class. So new singleton means I'm creating an object, right? So I'm creating the object within the class only. So this private construct is accessible. If I'm creating this object from outside of my class, then suppose if I'm creating the object from outside of my class, then it is not accessible. Are you able to follow me, right? But if I'm creating inside, It's okay, accessible. Object creation inside is possible. Now, create a method to return this object to others. So you should create a method. What type of method you should create? Static method. Why should I create a static method? Because how other classes can call this method to get the object? By through class name. They can't create object of my class. So then how can they call my method? The only way is they can access my method by using my class name. So to make my method accessible with a class name, I should make my method as what type of method? Static method. That's why I'm writing it as what? Public static. Return type is what? Singleton. And the method name is, let's say, get instance. Okay, get instance, get singleton, something like that. Return singleton. Okay. Now tell me, this implementation is a thread safe implementation or not? Is this implementation is a thread safe implementation or not? Yes. This is called early creation or early initialization of singleton. Early initialization of singleton. Is this thread safe or not a thread safe? Is this a thread safe or is this not a thread safe? What is the answer? Not a thread safe. First of all, how do you identify whether it is thread safe implementation or not a thread safe implementation? Okay. For example, from two threads which are parallelly executing, if I call this get instance method at the same time, if it is returning multiple objects, it is not thread safe implementation. If it is returning the same object for all the threads, now it is going to become thread safe implementation. Now tell me, is this a thread safe implementation or not a thread safe implementation? Is it a thread safe implementation or is it not a thread safe implementation? It's a thread safe implementation. How can you say? First understand, assume that there are two threads running in my application, T1 and T2. Just a minute. Just a minute. What I'm saying is, there are two threads in my application, guys. Understand? There are how many threads now? Two threads. Let's say, for example, T1 is one thread and T2 is another thread. How many threads are there? Two threads are there. There are two threads. Now, at the same time means concurrently, thread 1 and thread 2. Concurrently, thread 1 and thread 2 both are calling this get instance method. Are they calling one after the other or exactly at the same time they are calling? Exactly at the same time, the two threads are calling this. Actually, two threads are going to do two different tasks. Both the tasks are executing, but at the same time, T1 and T2, the two threads are exactly at the same time calling this get instance method. Tell me what this get instance method will do. For two threads are exactly at the same time calling this method called get instance. Will it return two different objects to the T1 and T2 separately, or the same object is returned for both T1 and T2? Same object. Because whenever this method is called, it's going to return what object? Singleton. Already singleton object is created here. It's a static variable. Static variable means it is created at the time of when the class is loaded into the JVM. Means when the class is loaded into the JVM, already what is created? Object is created already. Now it is returning what? The same object is returning. Now it is a thread safe implementation. But what is the problem with this? The problem is, for example, there is a class created like this, but no other class is calling this get instance method to get the object of this class. Then, are you getting my point? Suppose there are no threads in my application, and in my application, no other class is trying to access this object. No other class is trying to access this object. Are you able to follow me? No other class is trying to access this object. Please try to understand now. If no other class is trying to access this object, did you guys tell me what happens in that case? The memory allocation done for this object gets wasted. I have created a class like this, but no other class is trying to access an object of this class. Then what is the use of creating an object of this class? Its memory gets wasted. Memory gets wasted. That's a problem. This is called what type of initialization? Early initialization. It's a singleton class with early initialization. This is called early initializing singleton. Okay, that's what I told. Next, we will start implementation 2. Okay, we will start implementation 2. Okay, we will start implementation 2. We will start implementation 2. Okay, this is first one. In the last class, I told all those things, and now I'm writing them one after the other. Now one after the other, I'm writing. Okay, now I'm talking about implementation 2. Second implementation. Now what is the second implementation? Write the same class. I'll copy this. Write the same class once again. Guys, observe it. Just a minute. Now what I'm trying to say, guys, right, one more time, I'm writing the same class. Okay, I'm done for that. Now observe here. If I directly write is equal to new singleton, then tell me directly what is created. Object is created. This is called early initialization. With early initialization, problem is what? Memory is getting wasted. So what can I do now? Don't create the object immediately. Just create the static variable. But whenever this method is called for the first time, then you create the object. When this method is called by any other class to get the object, then only you create the object. That too, every time it should create the object, or only first time? Only first time it should create the object. So how to know that it's a first time or next time? If, for example, this reference variable has null value, it is first time. Am I right or not? If the reference has not null value, object is already created. So what I will do here, I will write one if condition. What is my if condition? If a singleton equals to null, then only you create the object. Then only you create what? Singleton is equal to new singleton. This is what in the last class I told you. Now tell me, this is called singleton with early initialization or lazy initialization? Lazy initialization. This is called lazy initializing singleton variable. Previous one is what? Early initializing the singleton variable. This is called lazy initializing the singleton variable. Am I right or not? Very good. Now you tell me, in this I told there is a problem. Okay, what is the problem with the second implementation, with this implementation? What is the problem with the second, this implementation? The problem with this implementation is what? It is not a thread safe implementation. So how can you say that it is not a thread safe implementation? For example, exactly at the same time, my application is a multi-threading application. Exactly at the same time, how many threads? 2 threads. Okay, exactly at the same time, two threads T1 and T2 are calling T1 and T2, the two threads, and they are working in my application. And two threads are exactly at the same time calling which method? Get instance method. See, they are calling one after the other, or they are calling at the same time? They are calling exactly at the same time. If the two threads are exactly at the same time calling this method, then what will happen? If exactly at the same time the two threads are calling the get instance method, what will happen now exactly at the same time? Tell me, when they are called this method exactly at the same time, what is the value in the singleton variable? Null. Null. For thread 1, the singleton variable has null value. And thread 2 also sees that singleton variable is null value. That's why if condition will be satisfied for both the threads. Now you tell me how many objects are created for this class? Two objects are created. So tell me, this is a thread safe implementation or not a thread safe implementation? Not a thread safe implementation. If two threads are exactly at the same time calling this get instance method, then how many objects are created? Two. If exactly at the same time three threads are calling this method, then three. If exactly at the same time 100 threads are calling this method, then 100 objects are created. So it is not a thread safe. Then we are going to understand the third option. Now we are going to understand the third option, guys. We are going to understand the third option. Okay. So now third option. This is third option. Now in the third option, how to make it as thread safe? The problem with this is called thread safe. So how to make it as a thread safe singleton? Okay. And for that, I should make this method as what type of method? Synchronized. Synchronized. If you make this method as a synchronized method, then tell me how many threads can able to call this method exactly at the same time? Only one thread can do that. Very good. Now then tell me, there are two threads are there. There are two threads are there. And both the threads are exactly at the same time calling this get instance method. There are two threads called T1 and T2. Let us name T1 and T2 are the two threads, and both the threads are exactly at the same time calling this method called what? It is calling T1 and T2 are the two threads. They are exactly at the same time calling this method. What's the method name? Get instance method. Am I clear with that? Very good. Now you tell me, both the threads are when at a time calling, how many threads can able to make a call to this method? Because it is a synchronized method, then you tell me a thread which gets the lock of this object, and that only can able to call that method. Am I right or not? For example, T1, T2 are exactly at the same time calling this method, but T1 has got the lock. T1 has acquired the lock on this singleton object. Now you tell me, only T1 thread will be allowed. What about T2? Waiting. Okay. Now T1 has entered into this method. Then singleton variable is null. Object is created. After creating the object, next return statement is executed. Then return statement will return the object to the thread 1. After that, thread 1 will come out of this method. When a thread is coming out of synchronized method, automatically lock gets released. Automatically lock will be released. Now tell me, who will enter? T2 will enter. But by the time when the T2 enters, already object is created. So singleton variable is null or not null? It is not null. That's why object is created or not created? Not created. Return singleton means what happens? The objective will be returned back to the T2. Same object is returned back to the T2. Now tell me how many objects are created? One object is created. This is good implementation. Not the best implementation, but a good implementation. So do you know why I am not calling it as best implementation? How? That is required. So I'm telling that this is good implementation, but this is not the best implementation to make a Java class as a singleton class. Hmm. If my class is, if this is my class, if I'm only writing a private constructor, then nobody can create another constructor to my class. Hmm. Multiple constructors? I'm not creating, na? What is the use of creating another constructor in this singleton class, in this class, to overload the constructor? What is the use of overloading the constructor here? Right? There is no use of overloading the constructor. A small point here. Okay, that's where we need to understand about a concept called synchronized method and synchronized block. Okay, now this is what type of method? Synchronized method it is. It is not synchronized block, it is a synchronized method. You understand here. I'll tell you the reason why it is not the good implementation. Okay, I'll tell you why this implementation is not a good implementation. I'll start. You're right. See here. Actually, in this, which code is critical section of the code? If condition or return statement. Which is critical section of code, and because of that we are getting the thread issues, thread safety problem. If block. If statement, because of if statement, if is a critical section of code. Return statement is not a critical section of code. Only which block is critical? If two threads are at a time executing the if statement, if exactly at the same time two threads are executing if statement, then how many objects are created? Two objects are created. That is critical section. That's why to prevent that, we are making this method as what method? So are you making this method as synchronized method because of if statement or because of return statement? Because of if statement, you are making it as synchronized, not because of return. Return statement, if multiple threads are executing exactly at the same time, the same return statement, no, nothing will happen. The same object will be returned to all. So out of these two, which is the critical section? Which is the critical section of the code? If block is a critical section, not the return. Which one? If block is the critical section of code, not the return statement. Am I clear with that? So did you guys understood what I am trying to explain you? Am I clear with that? Sure. Come to the point. Well, I will like to tell you. Suppose thread 1 has entered. Then tell me, when thread 1 enters, thread 2 is waiting at outside this method. How much time thread 2 has to wait? Until the two statements inside the method are executed. Correct? But actually, if thread 2 waits until the if statement executed, is enough now? Am I right or not? Is it enough or not? Yes, it's enough. Thread 2 no need to wait until the return statement executed. It should wait only until if statement executed, because that is a critical section of code. If a first thread comes out of execution of if statement, thread 2 can enter. Am I right or not? But what is happening now? I mean, in this example, what is happening? Thread 2 is waiting until entire method is executed, the first statement as well as. That's why thread 2 is getting more waiting time. And this is a cascading effect for other threads. For example, T1, T2, two threads only I'm talking about here. Let's say, for example, there are 100 threads. Then T1 is entered into that method. T2 to T100 waiting. Now what happens if the next chance for T2? T3 to T100 are waiting. For T2, waiting time may be less, but for T100, it is more waiting time. Are you able to get the understanding of the threads T1 to T100? So that's why it is a good implementation of singleton, but not the best implementation. Means don't allow the threads or don't make the threads to wait until return statement is executed. Just make the threads to wait only until if statement executed. That's it. Now let's see how we can able to write. Then I should go for synchronized block inside a method. If you want to keep only some code of the method, some critical section of the code, you want to make it under into the lock. You want to make it under into the lock. Then you tell me, we are going to implement what? Synchronized block. Not the whole method, but you want to just keep only some part of the code of the method, which is critical code. So that code should execute by only one thread at a time. So that code we can keep in synchronized block. Let's see how we can write. So you are getting completely called what? Singleton design pattern. If anybody asks in interview about singleton design pattern, you can explain by writing this type of code, and you can just explain why this is not the good implementation and why we are going to write like this. So as of now, okay, as of now, my code is good, but next I want to improvise it. Let us understand how to improvise. Let us understand how to improvise this code. Okay, na? Let us understand how to improvise this. Good. See, I will like to explain what I am trying to do now. I do not want to write this method as what method? Synchronized method. What I want to do in place of that, I don't want to make it a synchronized method, but what I want to do in place of that, I want to write a synchronized block. Sure, we will write. Whenever you're writing synchronized block in Java, to the synchronized block, you should pass the object on which a thread has to acquire the lock as a parameter. Synchronized block takes parameter like a catch block. Nowadays, try block also taking parameters. That is called a try with resources. That's called try with resources, closable resources, auto closable resources. We can pass to the try block. Try with resources statement, you know. So nowadays, try block is also taking parameters. Catch block definitely takes parameters. Means a block can also have a parameter. Synchronized block also takes what? Parameter. What should be the parameter for synchronized block? The parameter of a synchronized block should be an object on which a thread should acquire a lock. Right. The object whose lock a thread has to acquire. Better statement. An object whose lock a thread has to acquire it. That we should pass as parameter. Normally, when you are writing the methods, you are going to synchronized of this. Synchronized of this. Like that you write now. Synchronized of this. Like that we write. I'll tell you. Actually, what we write is synchronized of this. You'll write like this. This is a block. Start, write the critical section code and keep it within the curly braces. Okay. What this refers? The current object of this class. Am I right or not? But currently I am in which block? As you know that if it is a static method, inside a static method, this is not allowed. Of course, super also not allowed. This and super, both of them are not allowed in which method? In static method. In static method, we cannot write the this keyword or we cannot write the super keyword. We can only write now here class object. Then when I'm writing synchronized block in this static method, I cannot use this keyword. So the other parameter I can pass here is class object. What object? Class object. So how can I pass the class object of this class? Every class has class object. How to pass the class object of the class? I should write singleton dot class. What should I write? This class name is singleton, na? Singleton dot class. Class name dot class is called class object. This is not allowed, na? Right. Tell me, what should I do? I would like to go to which method? I like to go to which method? Get instance method. And tell me in the get instance method, I want to keep this code in which block? Synchronized. Okay, I'm writing synchronized of, what should I write? Singleton dot class. Please try to understand this, guys. I want to format the code here. Tell me, what is the advantage of this code? What is the advantage of this code, guys? The advantage of this code is dash. What is the advantage of this code, guys? The advantage of this code is, okay, tell me only which statement I am keeping under synchronized under the lock, otherwise only if statement I am writing in the lock. Return statement is outside the lock. For example, two threads at a time exactly at the same time are calling this method, but only one thread can enter into this synchronized block. It can acquire the lock on this object. For example, T1 has got the lock. Who got the lock? T1 has got the lock. T1 has entered here. Then tell me who is waiting? T2 is waiting. Am I right or not? T1 has entered. Who is waiting? T2 is waiting. Okay, T1 has entered. Singleton variable is null. So object is created. And once it is coming out of the block, lock gets released automatically. Whenever T1 is coming out from this place, it is coming out here. T1 is coming out. Going to which statement? Return. Exactly at the same time, who will enter now? T2 will enter. Able to follow me? Now tell me, T2 is waiting until return statement is executed or not waiting to execute the return? It is not waiting until the return statement is executed. Waiting time is less now. Very good. Now again my question. What is the problem with this code? What is the issue with this code? Any guess? Any guess like what is the issue with this code? I'm asking that. What is the issue with this code? Yes, guys. I'm asking, what is the issue with this code? No. Anybody from online, do you want to say something to me? Do you want to expect some, do you want to expect some response? Any guess, like this is an issue? Anything? Yes, guess. Any issue?
Sir, deadlock can happen.
No. No deadlock, no. Any other? See, guys, I have a question to you. Okay, just now I told you there are how many threads? T1 and T2. Tell me, first, actually, T1 has got the chance. Actually, both are trying to call this method exactly at the same time. But which thread has got the lock first? T1 has acquired or got the lock on this object. It has acquired the lock on the object. Now, only who can enter? T1. What about T2? Is waiting. Very good. Tell me, when the T1 comes out from this place, from this synchronized block, then who can enter now? T2. Now T2 is again entered into which block? Synchronized block. Understand here. After T2, who is waiting? T3, T4, they are waiting. Now T2 got the chance now. T2 also entered into what? Synchronized block. After entering into the synchronized block, T2 came to know that what? Singleton is not null. Already object is created. So it is not going to execute this if block. Then it comes out of synchronized block. Will enter into which statement? Return statement. Then who will enter? T3 will enter. My question, first T2 has entered into where? Synchronized block. If T2 enters into synchronized block, means what? T2 has acquired the lock on the object. That's why T3 is also waiting. Very good. After entering into the block, then what it came to know? Already object is created. Then it is coming out of the block. Then next thread will enter. It will also enter into synchronized block. Then T4, T5, they are all waiting. After entering inside the synchronized block, then T3 came to know that what? Already object is created. Again, it will come out. Go to the return statement. Next thread will come. Every thread will do like that only. Are you able to follow me now? Then tell me here also, when every thread is going into synchronized block, lock is acquired. And when it's coming out of that, lock got released. Till that moment, T3, T4, T5, they cannot enter. They are waiting. So that's why, again, it is also providing some performance bottleneck. It's also providing some performance bottleneck. Am I clear with that? Sure. Good. That's why what actually we can do is before entering into synchronized block, check whether singleton variable is null or not null. If it is not null, then directly go to return statement, because already it is not null. If it is null only, then go to the synchronized block, create the object, then come out of it, return it. Am I right or not? Means what should I do? I should write one more if statement. If statement. If singleton equal to null, if a singleton equal to null, then go inside. Did you guys followed my point? Tell me, when should a thread enter into the synchronizer block? If a singleton is equal to null. If it is not equal to null, already object is created, then what is the use of going into synchronizer block? Unnecessarily acquiring the lock so that other threads who are waiting gets more time. Their waiting time gets increased. Are you able to follow me now? Now you tell me, first you verify what? Singleton is null or not. For very first thread, singleton is null. For very first thread, singleton is null. But for second thread, third thread, fourth thread, singleton is null or not null? Not null. I have a question now. Last question I'm asking. I have a question here. My question is, okay, you're writing if condition if singleton is equal to null already here, then what is the use of writing again if singleton is equal to null here? I can avoid this now. Already you are writing what if singleton is equal to null, then enter into synchronized block, then create the object. Why again if singleton is equal to null? One more time. One more if condition waste na. I can avoid this, right? But if I avoid like that, again my application is not going to make my class a singleton class. Again there is a problem. What is the reason? Anybody from online?
Before entering to synchronized block, there may be a chance to other thread that it will check the if block first and then like there may be
Exactly. Yes, you're right. You're right. See, I got the answer. The point is what? Two threads are there, sir. T1 and T2. T1 and T2 are exactly at the same time calling this method. Exactly at the same time they are executing or calling this get instance method. Tell me when T1 and T2 are exactly calling this method, then both threads can enter into this method. It is not a synchronous method, na? Yes. Both threads are coming to this place. Both threads are coming into this place. What the value singleton is equal to? Null. Thread 1 observes null. Thread 2 also observes null. Next statement is synchronize the block. Thread 1 got the first chance. Then T2 is waiting just before this block. T2 is waiting just above. It is waiting here because who got the first chance? T1 has entered into which block? Synchronized block. Singleton is null. Yes. Creates what? Object. T1 will come out. Then who will enter? T2. T2 will enter. When T2 enters into the block, then tell me singleton is null or not null? Not null. That's why it is directly coming out without executing this statement. If this condition is not available, then tell me what happens. T2 also enters and creates another singleton object. Then again two objects are created. If there are three threads, three objects are. If 100 threads, 100 objects are created. Are you able to follow me? That's why two checks are required. Now you tell me two checks are available. T1 has done now. T2 now entered into this block. Then tell me when T2 enters, the if condition says singleton is null or not null. Not null means it creates object or doesn't create the object. Without creating the object, it is coming out, right? If this if condition is missing, then there is a chance of creating multiple objects. Then my class is not a singleton class. This is called double check locking. This is called what? Double check. Why double check? This is the first check. This is the second check. Okay. When singleton When singleton not equal to null. Okay. Okay. Whenever, I will tell you, I got your answer. If you write return statement in if condition, you are writing if singleton not equal to return singleton. Next, what do you write? Else. Else, you want to make it as what block? Synchronized block. Tell me, if a singleton not equal to null, you return. Else synchronized. In only if block, if you write return statement, you will get compile time error for this line. You have a method. In a method, if you write return statement only in the if block, if condition true, then only return will execute. But this method should return the value. Not only if the condition is true. That's what I'm saying. If a singleton not equal to null, return singleton. This return, where is this return? In if block. If you write only return statement in if block, when this return statement will execute? If condition is true, it will return. If condition is false, you are not writing any return. Then you tell me, what is the return type for this method you are mentioning? Singleton. Again, you want to return the singleton object. Means two return statements you want to write. That these both are same, na? Right?
They are checking only once.
Where are you checking for only once? I'll write the code here. If a singleton not equal to null, then what? Return singleton. Else or without else. Okay. Next statement. Synchronized block of what? Singleton dot class. Inside that, if again what? Singleton equal to null. Create the singleton object. New singleton. Okay, everybody understand? New singleton. Tell me. Next, after the synchronized block, then return the singleton. This is what the code you are telling. Tell me if two threads are coming into this method. T1, T2. First time for T1 and T2, singleton is null or not null? First time for both the threads, null only. Then they are going out of this if block. Then going into which block? Synchronized block. You tell me T1 only entered and T2 is waiting here. Right? Now you tell me T1 has entered and singleton is null created. But when T2 enters, again checking the condition, this time it came to know that it is not null. That's why it is not creating the object and coming out and returning. Tell me first, already they have verified this condition. That's why they came here. 1, 2. How many times condition verified? So in this way, in that way, 2 conditions, right? Good. Nice. Cool. Now you tell me. This is called first check. This is called double check locking. Where are double checks? This is the first check and this is the second check. Now this is called singleton with double check locking. So this is comparatively the better approach of making a Java class as what? Singleton class when compared with the previous 2 or previous 3 approaches. Am I right or not right? What is the very first approach? Early initializing the singleton variable. Second approach, lazy initializing the singleton variable. What is the problem with early initializing singleton variable? Object is created before its use. Am I right or not? Memory gets wasted. But it is thread safe. Second option, early initializing a lazy initializing the singleton variable. Advantage is what? Object is created when a first use is there. Memory is not wasted, but it is not a thread safe. Third approach, we want lazy initialization with thread safety. Lazy initialization with thread safety. Problem is what? Performance. Performance. Now you tell me you want lazy initialization You want thread safety and you want a good performance. Then go for what? Double check lock. Are you able to get my point now? By creating static inner classes also, we can make it a singleton. That is called build-pug implementation. It's not required. This is enough now. So this is comparatively the best approach of making the Java class as what? Singleton class. Multiple classes we can make singleton. See, singleton class means what? For that class, you want to make only one object and you want to share with the entire application. Like that, another class is also there. You make it as another singleton class. Okay. So in one application, there could be multiple singleton classes can exist. There is no rule that for the entire application, only one singleton class can be created. Not like that. Okay. You can create 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 singleton classes also in one application. If you want to create a single object and you want to share it with everyone in the entire application, then go for singleton class. That's it. Whether 2 classes you want like that, make them as 2 singleton classes. So 3 classes you want to make them as 3 singleton classes. Good to know. First, I want to name them. Heading. What is heading here? Early initializing singleton variable. Am I right or not? It's called what variable? Early initializing singleton variable. Tell me. Here I am writing. What is pro? What is con? Pro means advantage, con means drawback. Pros, cons, we say like that. Now, pros means advantages, cons means disadvantage, drawbacks. Pro. What is pro? Thread safety. Con. Pro is okay, con. Sorry? Memory. Memory wasted. Memory wasted when no use of this class, when there is no use of this object or whatever it is, memory wasted. Memory wasted when not used. When not used, right? Tell me next. Tell me. This second one is called. This second one is called early na, lazy na? Lazy. Lazy. Lazy initializing what? Singleton. What is that? Lazy initializing singleton variable. Lazy initializing singleton variable. Am I clear? Very good. Tell me pro and con. Next statement. Tell me pro and con. Tell me the pro. What is pro? Early na, lazy na? Lazy. Lazy means memory wasted or not wasted? Okay. Memory is not wasted for the object, or memory is not wasted because okay, object is created at first use. Am I right? Object is at first use. What's the con? Not thread safe. Not thread safe. Tell me. This is lazy initialization with lazy initialization with thread safety. Am I right or not? Lazy initialization with what? Thread safety. Tell me, what is advantage and what is a drawback? I mean, pro and con. What is pro? Sorry? Pro. Thread safe and object is created at first use. Am I right or not? Con. Performance issue. Performance issue. This is called what check locking? Double check locking. This is double check locking. Tell me, it's called double check locking, na? Could you just tell me advantage and drawback, pro and con? Pro. Lazy initialized, thread safe, and good performance. Everything is cool now, right? Thread safety is there because of synchronized. Next, lazy initialized, object is created in first use. Next, good performance. Best approach. Because of lazy initialization, thread safe, and better performance. So these are all pros. We are not adding any con. So basically, which is going to be the best approach in making a Java class a singleton? Double check locking. Double check locking. Okay. Let me do one thing. I will open the document first. In the document, I should add some statements related to. I will do that. Okay. Today I'll get the time. I'll do. I forgot. Sorry. Sir, here everybody, folks in online, try to understand. After this, I think we discuss about scope annotation. After this example, we discuss about which annotation only? At the rate scope annotation only. That's what our discussion. I will add the statements on the scope. Don't worry. Okay. I'm just keeping my heading like singleton design pattern. And I just want to copy this. So first, this is our first initialization. This is the first one. I'll copy and I'll share these notes today. Because again, from Monday, I will start a new document. This document, and that new document is for starting with Spring Boot. Okay, guys. And this is going to be pro and cons are there. Na? Okay, let us make it visible here. Yes. And one more thing, I think online folks, from Monday, you should add or you should attend this session, Directly, we are going to start with the Spring Boot on Monday. And you have to attend this class with another meeting ID. Not this meeting ID. You have to attend with another meeting ID that will be shared in your WhatsApp group. Okay, today we will share you in the WhatsApp group. So on Monday, you have to attend with that meeting ID. Okay, this meeting ID will not be started on Monday, folks. Remember that. And those guys who have not attended the class today, please let them know. Of course, anyhow, we are going to keep it in the WhatsApp group of this batch. Okay, na? Today, you will get the new link to join the sessions from Monday with a different meeting ID, Zoom meeting
Same
ID.
time. Same time, sir.
Same time.
Okay.
Same time.
The static in a class will not be a good idea also, right? Or you will discuss.
No, that is also same like double check laughing only, but we can get a static inner class.
Okay.
That is called Buildpug implementation. Okay, that is not required. Okay, this is enough to
Okay.
understand about singleton.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Last one, sir. Today I'll share these notes. Okay, by adding scope annotation, scope singleton, prototype, request, session, application. Somebody has given application scope also we can use instead of making it a singleton. Okay, application scope is per context. Per context means if I scale my application onto multiple servers, then again a different object is created. So if I start the multiple instances of a server, then multiple objects are created. That is the different context objects are created. So you will come to know that. Okay, I will give you a clarity on that. Somebody asked a question today in the chat box. You will get the clarity for your question when I am into the web development. Okay, there I can show you.
Sir, here I have one doubt.
Sure.
So mention singleton dot class, right? So is it mandated to mention dot class for the
Yes, it's
class?
mandatory because no, singleton is your class name, right?
Yes.
For synchronized block, we can pass object as a parameter.
Okay.
We should not
Not
pass
only
the string parameter.
okay.
That's why we are passing singleton dot class. Dot class means it returns class object.
Okay. So not only here. So you mentioned so many places like if you take app config class. So for
App
the
config dot class. Yes. In Java, there is a statement like this. See. Okay. I'm just writing. I can write like this. Class C capital letter. C is equal to student dot class. So for every class in Java, when the class gets loaded, there is a class property added. This class property stores class object. This class object stores metadata of the class. And this class object will be available in the method area of JVM. It is created in the method area with all the metadata of your class that is available in the class object. Okay, right? And now if you want to get this class object which contains the metadata of your class from this method area, then this object gets stored in this variable called class variable. This class variable is automatically created at the runtime when the class gets loaded into the JVM. This is the class object created for the class. This object stored in a variable called class. This variable is dynamically created at the time when the class gets loaded into the JVM. Now, if you want to get this class object, then you have to call this class variable. That's why I'm writing student.class. Okay, right. If you write any class called student, public class student with the ID, with the name, when this class loaded into the JVM, to this class, one more variable added called class.
By default
And
class,
its type is class. This class variable is added to the every class when the class is loaded into the JVM. And this variable is going to store the object. What object? Class object. And whenever you want to get the, it's a static variable. Static class, public static class variable is added. So if it is a public variable, we can access from outside. Static variable, we can access with the class name. What is the class name? Student. That's why student.class. It is a big story. For now, it is just something else I have explained. Okay. All right. We do not want to go much into that. It is not required for our Spring.
Thank you, sir.
It's enough to know. Okay. Right. So far, I have given everything which is related to the singleton design pattern.
But
I
do
will
you
add
have
the
to use
scope
the same
statements.
name, right? The predefined singleton class name you have to use, right, sir? The keyword singleton, the
Where is singleton?
up, if you go up more. The public class singleton, the keyword capital
No, it
singleton.
is not no.
You can
Hey,
use
we
anything
don't.
there, right?
This is your class name. Just I am writing my
my
class
class
name
name.
called singleton class. I am writing my class name as singleton.
Okay.
Okay. Suppose you want to make your class name like this. That's your see. For example, I am writing public class instead of singleton. I want to write only one.
Okay.
That is also correct.
That
My
is also
class name is
correct.
only
And
one.
then I will put in only one dot class in the
That's it.
synchronized.
That's what. Here you should write only one dot class.
Okay. Got it, sir.
Okay.
To access its metadata, right, sir?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm done. And there is annotation like post, construct, pre, destroy. Anyhow, in Spring Boot, I'll explain. Don't worry on that. From Monday, we will start with the Spring Boot, and the link we will share in the WhatsApp group of this batch. And on Monday, you join at 7:30 with that meeting ID. Okay. And on Monday, I'll directly start with the Spring Boot. So far, I've given some basics on Spring, and that is enough. And we are going to look at into Spring Boot from Monday. I'll tell you why Spring Boot, what is the advantage of it, and how we can able to create a first application in Spring Boot. All such kind of things we will discuss from Monday onwards. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.